Hey there, good afternoon and welcome. We're going to give it just a minute before we get started to give everybody time to enter the room. So welcome. All right, everyone, welcome to our HBCU 20x20 Rock Your Internship panel. My name is Jonathn Geter. I'm the Associate Director of College Recruiting here at AT&T, and we are thrilled to have an illustrious panel for you today. Now, before we get going, just a few logistical pieces. This is being recorded, so stay tuned tomorrow for an email as we'll send out the recording to you all. And we're going to do Q&A at the end of the session, and you will actually type your questions into the Zoom in about 45 minutes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Nicole Tinson with HBCU 20x20.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Tinson. I'm the founder and CEO of HBCU 20x20. And HBCU 20x20 is a national diversity and inclusion company really dedicated to making sure HBCU students and graduates get connected to jobs and internships. And just a brief background, I attended Dillon University, an HBCU in New Orleans, and went on to Yale for graduate school and saw the ways that companies recruited and really wanted to, in a sense, be a vessel and provide services and resources to a community I love so much. So in the spirit of homecoming, this is like right on time. So I'm excited for this panel and see, what kind of conversations happen. So.
I love it. I love it. You know, speaking of homecoming, we were just talking about how Beyonce dropped that album. So you might have another call out of that this afternoon. Awesome. So let's go and have our panel introduce ourselves. Sean.
All right, so I'm Sean Jones. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and I've been with AT&T for a while, about 10 years. And the cool thing is I'm a lead channel manager for the marketing team on the business side. So enjoy my job, and I'm looking forward to the conversation here today.
Awesome.
My name is Dejanay White. I'm originally from the Bay Area, California. I received my undergrad in computer science from North Carolina A&T. I'm currently in grad school at University of Texas at Dallas, and I am a technical product owner here at AT&T for our technology development organization.
Awesome.
All right, so I'm Celeste Davis from Houston, Texas. I went to the University of Oklahoma and got a degree in industrial and systems engineering. Currently here at AT&T, I am working for our chief data office as a technical business manager as well. And yeah, that's all of me.
Awesome.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Darius Brown. I'm a part of the technology development program here at AT&T, where I'm an engineer one under the cybersecurity track. I'm a two-time graduate of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, where I received my undergrad and graduate degree in computer science.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining the panel today. What do you say we get into the questions?
That works for me.
Awesome. So what are some things that interns can do to ensure they secure a job after the summer? Because at the end of the day, it's great to intern, but you want to close the deal and make sure you walk out of your internship with an offer.
Well, I think, as soon as you take the internship, I would set a meeting up with my superior, so my supervisor, and I'd say, hey, at the end of this, what would you want to see from me, right? How do we determine success at the end of my tenure here during my internship? So you can get a clear perspective on what they would like you to do while you're there. Whether it's a project or whatever it might be, have that meeting, ask that question, and make sure that you're clear that at the end of the internship, you'll know exactly what the expectation is and how to deliver on it.
And I would add to that, after you've done that, when you get close to the end of your internship, I think it's important to have that conversation and understand, okay, so what are the opportunities for me if I wanted to come back next summer? Is there room for me in this group? Is there somewhere else that I can go? If you have interest in another group, then maybe you can look up that or find connections in that group or team and see what their opportunities are. But throughout the summer, you can also be looking for different spaces. If you don't think that your group is the one that you want to join at the end of the summer, you can be finding other opportunities and asking them, what would it take for me to be able to join your team when I finish this internship? How can I show you that I'm a worthy candidate to come work for you in your group?
Yeah, and I can add to that as well. Definitely, you made it known that you want to be able to work full-time or be able to come back next year for the internship. And you want to make that known in the beginning and also in the end, but also, during that time, performing well, being able to do your job well. Show them what all you can do. I know there's a lot of talented people out there and want to be able to represent well for universities, and being able to get your projects and do them well, and your managers and everyone can speak well of you. If you made your intentions known to them and that you want to stay, then there's a high possibility, if the opportunity is available, that you can be able to stay on after the internship. So being able to do your job well, I think, is a vital part as well.
I'd also add, use your network. So I'm sure other students at your university have interned for the company or have secured a full-time opportunity after doing an internship. So figure out what they did to get there, figure out what their companies were looking for or the company that you're interning with were looking for, and then use that in your discussion with your supervisor.
Yeah, love that. And I'll also add, having multiple touch points with your supervisor over the course of the summer to close that feedback loop is tremendously helpful. And if you're not getting that, guess what you need to do? Ask for it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So that's a great point, which leads to my next question. Oftentimes, as an intern, you interface and mingle not only with colleagues and peers, but also senior leadership. So what are some of the best ways for interns to interact with senior leadership, in your opinions?
In my experience at my internships, volunteer opportunities. So when you have volunteer opportunities that are sponsored through the company, a lot of the times you'll see the leaders there at those events. So I just say, go to those events, talk to who's there, understand where leadership is really putting their support, whether it's volunteer opportunities, it might be side projects, wherever you hear leadership is invested, make sure that you're there and that you're showing your value.
I would also say, if you, for at least for the technology development program, we are intentional about making sure there are events for the interns to go to where leaders are at. If you know if you know a certain leader is going to be there that you want to speak to, you can maybe look up their background before you go to the event. When you're at the event, listen to what they're saying. Maybe take note of some quotes that they said that resonated with you, and then after the event, you can go up and talk to them and say, hey, you spoke about this, and I really thought that was a great point, and here's what it meant to me. Even outside of that, if you know there are people that you want to talk to, knowing their information a little bit to have a question to ask them when you approach a leader, that's also a way to kind of have that conversation and get it started. But be natural is my biggest thing. Is don't act like they're some celebrity. They are people too, and they're working here just like you are, and so they're always willing to talk and help for the most part.
I mean, I agree with both of you. The only thing that I would add is, having that conversation with your supervisor. Like, one thing you can ask is, as soon as you start, who are the other people in our organization that you think I would benefit from having a conversation with?
Yeah.
Ask them to do a warm introduction, to actually say, hey, this is Sean. I'd like you to meet him.
Yeah.
Can you put some time on your calendar? Have somebody act as a liaison on your behalf to do the intro, and then maybe have a one-on-one, 15 minutes, 30 minutes at the most. They're busy folks, but most leaders are very open and happy to have a conversation with you. Who doesn't like talking about themselves? Most of them do.
I couldn't have said anything better.
Yeah.
Just so much great information, and like I said, I can just kind of talk about not being afraid to just go out there and do it, especially when you have someone bringing you to them, or in a matter of just going to talk to them yourself. Just don't be afraid. Just always. You never know how approachable a person in leadership may be. They can be the nicest person in the world. So just do it.
Okay, Nike, just do it. All right. So we touched on this a bit earlier, but tell me how you all secured feedback over the course of your internships.
So I think I definitely set goals for myself, and I made my manager aware of my goals in my internship. And so when you set those goals, it helps you with a good measuring point for how you're doing. It also gives your supervisor a chance to add on to those goals, so you can hear a little bit from them on what they would like to see from you, and then use that in order to gather feedback, your progress on those items, what you've done to achieve any progress on those items, and then just make sure you keep your supervisor in the loop. Continue to get that feedback throughout your internship. I
mean, I agree. Set a cadence throughout the internship to make sure that you're touching base, but I think she's on point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also like to add to that, not only with your supervisor, but if you have any other trusted people at the workplace, it's definitely a good idea if you want to run something by somebody, your presentation, this specific thing you're going to do, being able to present that to other people as well as your supervisor may be beneficial. So those people also have an environment where they're being honest with you. If you need to make a change, then be comfortable with them telling you you can make a change and all those things. So.
I love it. I love that call out at the end. Definitely, it's not just about what your supervisor thinks. Of course, that is of critical importance, but have a network of advocates and of folks that are willing to tell you where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, right?
Yeah.
Love that.
And with that, I think, as students enter into internships, you may have on your mind what you expect. So I always think about when I was an intern, one of my favorite internships was on Capitol Hill with Congressman Cedric Richmond. And I went into the internship thinking that I was getting ready to change laws. I was like, I'm a lawmaker. And I, got a really quick reality check. But I guess my question for the panel is, how should interns set their vision of accomplishments during their summer at a company like AT&T? What are some steps or what are some advice that you would give them to ensure that they maximize their experience?
Well, I think most of these larger companies at least have an actual internship program, right? So making sure that your program manager, you have that conversation and get clarity around what the expectation would be for what you need to do throughout the summer. But then also having a conversation with your supervisor and also some of the other folks who, and I think you alluded to this earlier, other interns who may have went to the program, reaching out to them and kind of finding out what they did while they were there, what their experience was like, and whether or not they thought it was valuable. Maybe finding out what they may have done a little bit differently so that you can maybe, take advantage of their knowledge.
Yeah. I know for me personally, the internships that I did were all geared towards my degree and then also what I wanted to do. Granted, I'm not in that field now, but when I got my internship with Toyota, I was like, I want to work at Toyota because that's the top industrial engineering space, to let me go be there to see how they work and operate.
Sure.
And so knowing that, I'm sure most of you guys kind of already know what company you want to work for and then why you chose that company. And so what I kind of did was I made sure I made a plan for action when I got there, as far as things I wanted to know and learn about while I was at Toyota that were outside of my project space, maybe other groups that I wanted to look at. I also I thought about, my coursework, what things that I want to actually apply while I was interning, and then also thought about things I would be taking the following fall that might help. And so seeing if that stuff could align. And then once I got there, like you said, you have your internship plan and things that align with that, you get your project. But setting goals, like Jonathn said earlier, for every single part of your internship is kind of how you get that vision to understand, okay, this is my goal for this summer while I'm here at this space. This is what I want to learn to take away before you get there. And then also once you get there, make sure they align professionally. So you have personal and professional goals that you want to accomplish by the end of your summer. And then you take away, at the end of the summer, you can kind of match that to what you were able to achieve and see if you met your goals. And it kind of helps you drive your internship a little bit more strategically.
I would say it really depends on what you want to get out of it. So you have to answer that question first for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So Les brought up a really good point. So a lot of these companies we know are industry leaders. So if that's the case and you're interning at a company that's an industry leader, have things written down that you want to learn from this company, how they operate, what their best practices are. And for most of you, your goal is to be getting experience for when you apply for full-time roles. So you might want to take a look at entry-level job openings, look at what those requirements are, fill in the gap, this is what I have from school and my education. This is where I need to get to. What can I do at this internship to get me to the point where I'm ready to be hired full-time?
What I will say also is one thing that I didn't think about and why I'm here at AT&T today, because I just knew I was going to work at Toyota, but company culture is something that people don't talk about, and you experience it when you get to places. And so I would encourage all of y'all, as well as something that you want to evaluate as part of your vision, is this a place where I could see myself full-time working within this kind of environment? Toyota had Japanese culture. AT&T is a very American company. They're two completely different types of spaces. So that's something to think about as well.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's helpful to note. I know something that people kind of like stray away from is asking questions. So like this notion of like something is a dumb question. And I always like to tell the story about how I was asked to put together a memo. I didn't know what a memo was and I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to look stupid, like, to the program manager. So I put together what I thought a memo was. It was a 10-page document that I thought I knew what I was doing. And I spent like overnight. It was like one of my finest products. And then I presented and they were like, this isn't it. And I just think like, if I would have had the courage and honestly, as an intern, the will to know that it's okay to ask a question and that there isn't a dumb question, I would have been fine. So what are some of your thoughts about that in regards to interns asking questions and understanding that there is no such thing as a dumb question and how that leads to their performance during their internships?
One of the things I try to remind people is that, like, once you've got the internship, you got to remember they interviewed other people, but they wanted you. So the fact is you're already there. So nothing that you're going to ask is going to be perceived as stupid because they thought you had the talent to come into the room. Actually, I think they expect you to ask questions. So, never feel like there's a dumb question. You've already got the job, so I ask.
I agree with that. Definitely we're talking about asking questions. One perspective I kind of look at it is that, if you don't know something, just ask it because what you're doing, projects that you're going to be working on, you're going to have your name tied to it. And you don't want to go on a project knowing you don't know what something is, or so you want to get that clarity when you're doing anything in the workplace. And so definitely ask any question that you need to do to make sure you have a clear understanding of what you're going to do.
So, and what I'll add to that is what I had to learn coming to a technology company is, and especially working in software development where those guys make all of their own, the Google stuff. So I would also suggest if it's a question that you could find the answer to on Google or at least do some base research for before you ask, you can ask an informed question. So that when you go to the person and say, yeah, I looked this up, I tried to figure out some stuff and I'm not really sure if this is what exactly you're asking for, so can you clarify? Am I on the right track? Because my goodness, the times that I've gotten crazy looks for asking certain things and the response was, and this is from peers of course, but did you Google it? And I'm just like, oh, okay, great. So that's something to think about as well, is they're not dumb questions, but there are things you can probably find some partial answers to before you ask the question.
I definitely agree with Celeste. Use your resources, whether it's Google or just, again, the people around you. If you need to ask the question to a smaller group or in a safe place, go ahead and do that and get that encouragement that, your question is valid. They might be able to give you some insights and then go ahead and ask the question.
I love it. So you all talked about doing some research and some preliminary things. And we all know that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So what are some things that you all can do ahead of your internships to set yourselves up for success during?
I actually like what Celeste was mentioning earlier about why she went to Toyota, right? So she figured out in specific industries who were the top performers. And then within that industry, what she wanted to learn while she was there. I think if you do that beforehand for whatever company you might work for, you're setting yourself up to be successful.
I'd say also understand the goals and the purpose of the company. So when you get there, you get your assignment, you understand why you're doing it, you understand what it does for the company, and you can better communicate what you've done during your internship.
To add to that, just when you're talking about companies, look in the news, look what direction the company is headed in, what kind of acquisitions are the company making now. This company could have been this type of company 20 years ago, but it's this type of company currently.
Right.
So look what kind of acquisitions, what kind of thing, and what direction this company is headed to.
And then I would also say, look at your specific group and maybe the skill sets that are needed to do the job that you're doing. If there's something that you need to level up on, like if you're going into a tech space, you need to maybe do some Tableau or do some code, learn some different languages or whatever it is. There's always something you can do to kind of prepare yourself for what you might walk into.
So So at the end of the day, you intern to gain experience, but you also intern so that you get that full-time offer. So how much of what you learned during your internship and that internship in general, how did that shape your decision regarding full-time employment?
So for me, I interned with AT&T, and what I figured out in my internship is I didn't want to work in that part of the business, right? So I went to Tennessee State University, have 2 degrees like you, but I was undergrad business information systems and graduate MBA. And what I learned is I didn't want to work in code and IT all day. I wanted to be a little bit more social, et cetera. So while I was there, I started looking at other opportunities and found out about the leadership development program here at AT&T. So that was my target. So I interned with the company for a couple years, but I was making connections with the people who ran the LDP program while I was here, meeting them, having lunch with them, because after I got out of grad school, that was my goal. It wasn't necessarily to work within my specific internship function, but to really stay with the company, but work in a different capacity. So for me, that's how I approached it.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I'll say internships are great for that. Is helping you figure out what you want to do, and if what you thought you wanted to do is really what you want to do. I'd say make sure you try to get internships as early as possible, because what I've seen a lot of people go through is go out, get an internship, come back, change their major. And it's good to know now before you get that full degree and pay all the tuition, and you have no way to pivot. Some people, like Celeste said, she got her degree and she was able to pivot into the tech space. It depends on what your degree is in. You may not be able to pivot. So it's good to get out there early, understand if what you're going to school for is what you actually want to do, and make any adjustments that you need to make.
And I would also say if you're starting early and you can get an internship as a freshman or a sophomore, I told my people that, moving to different companies to see how different companies work in different roles as well is something that you can do. I know that consistency also is a better track for getting a full-time offer sometimes, but if you make the connections while you're at a company and then you go to a different company, you can always, lean back on those people in your network if you want a full-time job in that space. But learning different types of the environments, again, the culture and how people work there, and then the jobs, the opportunities that are at different spaces is also something that you can do.
Definitely agree. Doing an internship, you get an insight view, front row seat to the culture of the company, how the company treat their employees, all of those different types of things. So doing an internship gives you a good insight into if you want to work for this company or not, and as well as what you want to do with your career.
Very good. And shameless plug for AT&T. We have a multitude of internships and full-time rotational development programs. So if you start early, or if you come and intern with us in general and you find out you don't like finance, or you don't like IT, or you don't like HR, or whatever field you're interning in, we have over 4,000 different job codes at AT&T. So that means multiple opportunities to pivot and to work in a different BU or business unit. All right.
That makes sense. Which kind of makes sense because you have to network, right, to figure out what you want to do. I think that networking is underrated, but probably one of the most important things that you can do during your internship. I know during my internship, I was able to meet President Barack Obama's senior advisor, and that relationship really enabled me to bring Michelle Obama to be our commencement speaker. Yes, I'm kind of gassing myself. But anyways,
Do it.
Networking is key and it's critical. So can you all talk a little bit more about the importance of networking, whether it's to land a full-time position at the company you're interning with, or just even to build your clout, within an industry?
I'll start on that. So I will be the first to say my university was very big on promoting networking, and I just did not understand what that meant. And really all it is just relationships. Talk to people, get to know people, understand different perspectives, keep in contact with people, because really when it comes down to it, getting a full-time job, you don't want to network at the time that you need the full-time job. You want to already have those connections built. And when in an internship, I know we talked about how do you talk to leadership? How do you make sure your supervisor knows you want the full-time job? Don't forget to network with your peers, because whether they stay or they disperse and go to other companies, it's always good to keep those connections, because you never know when you might need those.
And it's that networking piece, it's not necessarily about when you meet somebody at the networking event, it's what you do after the fact too. So it's the follow-up. You know, during your internship, when you return back to campus during the fall or the spring, it's critical that you do something with that, and you know, maybe send them a thank you note for the opportunity, or you know, set up a recurring quarterly meeting with them, just so that you stay top of mind, and when those opportunities arise, you're the first one they think about.
You know, to piggyback on that, you know, sometimes, you know, these networking relationships we gain, it's not all about what they can do for you, but it's also about what you may be able to do for them. So as you build a relationship, sometimes offer help, because as you guys are coming out of college, you may have some experiences or some new perspective that the company's hungry for. We all want to be innovative, and I'm sure some of them may reach out to you if you open that door.
And I think internships are also a great space where you can begin practicing how you network yourself. It's not the most natural thing to do. Some people are uncomfortable with it. So when you start early, you can start building how you want to interact, how you want to build relationships, and what that looks like for you. Because that's something I'm doing now, and wish I would have done it more when I was interning. I could be, you know, not in my full-time job trying to figure it out. So.
No, absolutely. I think that like at HBCU 20x20, when we talk about the piece of making sure people are prepared for opportunities, networking is key. So, I mean, just a tip from HBCU 20x20 is that 30-second elevator pitch, you know, having in mind, like, you know, who you are, what you're studying, what you're looking to do, you know, really helps you move within whatever space you're at, whether it's conference, or within your internship, but really being confident in yourself. And I always tell people, look in the mirror, like, you know, and confidently say, like, this is who I am and this is where I'm going. And that's just half the battle. That cuts out the fear, because you already know how it comes off to other people. So, you know, that's just one of our little keys. And another shameless plug, we do network to network events intentionally, so those who attend our events can connect with recruiters. So it's a little bit more easy, because you know you're going into a space to meet with people for opportunities.
And I'll say, added to that, owning your story. AT&T, what I've kind of learned is your personal brand statement kind of ties into your elevator pitch. And so being able to really just own that, and really think about like who you are and what you want to represent, and really let your brand be known when you meet people.
Absolutely. Reveal what's possible.
Reveal what's possible. Yeah, and so I know you all bring a tremendous diversity of experience to the table. So when you went to intern, was your internship directly linked to what you studied in your campuses?
For me, it was. You know, so I was, like I said, business information systems, and I did have an internship in IT where we were doing coding and system testing. So for me, yes, it was a direct link from an internship perspective. But prior to AT&T, I also interned with Target, you know, doing something more marketing focused. So, you know, I guess it kind of depends, but for AT&T it was.
All of my internships were in manufacturing. So I was working in plants and on assembly lines and doing time studies and case studies, and so I'm here now. But yeah, my internships were aligned with my degree, but I didn't choose to go into that field post-graduation. So.
I personally had 2 pivot points. So my first internship was actually in high school. I was in a law preparatory high school, and I just knew I wanted to be an attorney. And I went and interned and saved myself the money on that degree. I changed my mind and went to school for computer science. And so my first internship in college was as a developer. And I quickly realized this may not be what I want to do. So I started to position myself for opportunities in business analysis work and frame myself as a business analyst, so that my next internship was a business analyst internship and not a developer. And I entered into this company as a business analyst. So I was able to make that pivot. Even though I did stay within my major, I did not go into the typical course of development.
And also, my story is kind of similar. Like I said, I have a computer science degree, and you know, cybersecurity, computer science, definitely some interrelated fields. They have degree plans now where you have a specific cybersecurity degree. But at my university, we only had a general computer science degree plan, and I knew I wanted to go into security. So what I had to do was just kind of find opportunities to step into that space. So one opportunity that I did find was doing some research. my university had a professor that was doing some cybersecurity research. So that was my avenue into that field, and that kind of led me to get my internships in cybersecurity as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a good point to have. If you're interested in studying something and perhaps you're one of those candidates that finds out a little bit too late into your degree plan to change your major, you can always pivot, right? You can always go back to school. And what's great, another shameless plug for AT&T, is that we have a tremendous opportunity for our employees to skills pivot. We have great partnerships with Coursera, Udacity, and strategic partnerships with universities across the country if you decide to go back and continue your education and get a master's degree, an MBA, et cetera.
It's really nice. Yeah, I need to take advantage of this, especially if, they kind of paying for degrees too.
That's right.
So I think one of the last questions I want to ask is in regards to leaving an impression. So oftentimes people think, you go into an internship, you finish it, you got some skills, some experience under your belt, but they tend to forget that you might need someone to serve as a reference for you later on. So what are some tips or some advice that you give to those watching or that will watch in regards to what they need to do to stand out? And maybe it doesn't mean going above and beyond and trying to beat everyone in your internship like it's a competition, but what can they authentically do to stand out to ensure that they're remembered?
Well, one of the things you hope to do before you leave the internship is hopefully build a relationship with someone who wants to be an advocate for you, right? So that, and I think that's more than just doing a great job and just delivering on whatever the project is. It's building a relationship with someone and someone actually wanting to invest in you. If I want to ask someone for an actual reference, it's someone that I feel like they know me well enough to give one that's critiqued and it's delivered in a way that only they can deliver it, right? It's not something that's fake or something that I just send them my resume and they kind of fill it in. I want them to have a unique and true opinion. So I think that goes back to not just networking, but building a relationship and hopefully before you leave, and it could be a peer, having someone who's an advocate for you, someone who wants to see you be successful beyond, your internship.
And I definitely say, just continue to follow up. Like you said, you've built relationships with people, and don't just up and leave. Get to talk to people. Say thank you for the people who helped you during your internship.
Right.
That's a great opportunity. People remember that. So when you're about to leave, say thank yous and maybe ask them, can you use them as a reference? And then you'll be surprised about the answers that you get.
I think maybe when it comes to your project work, one thing that was always told to me was just, if there's anything that you can do to improve the group or the team or whatever space you're in, that's outside of your immediate project and you have time to work on it and do that, that's something that you can also do is go, one step ahead or one step further to fix something or change something that nobody kind of really thought to do or asked you to do, but you just took up on yourself to do.
And I'll go back to something that Celeste said about your brand. So if you outline your brand before you get there and you understand what you're good at and what your value is, and you communicate that in a consistent way, I really think that makes people remember you. They know you're the go-to for that one item or that one learning point. And so they're going to remember you when they need someone to do that.
And I can add one more point to that. One thing that you see if you think about leaving a lasting impression, then, they see you when you first come in and you do your internship. If you had a tremendous amount of growth, a lot of people will see that.
That's right.
I remember when I did my internship, I went back to my university and then the company came back to my university doing a career fair and they were looking for me and just kind of telling me that, hey, I remember you, man. I remember when you first came there, you were so shy, you didn't do a lot of talking. But at the end of that, man, you just continue to grow. And I like that in you. So, one of the things that you want to be able to document what you do and continue to grow during your internship, man, that's one of the things that people remember about you as well.
Yeah, I like that. I think a big piece of, building your brand and leaving a lasting impression over your internship is, you got to think about your performance in a couple of different ways, or how your brand in a couple of different ways. The first thing is your performance. So make sure you're doing everything you can to execute, meet your deadlines. You know, you want to operate at 110, 115, 120%. And that sounds crazy, but it's AT&T, so we do tend to operate at that level. You also want to make sure your image is right, and then your exposure, so your network, you know. Another thing I'll add to that is, you know, make sure people remember you. If it's, you know, you might intern in the summer. If you remember your supervisor's birthday, send them a birthday card or a birthday message. Send them a Christmas card, or, you know, whatever holiday that they celebrate. It's those types of things that really do leave a lasting impression and on folks. And I love to go to the mailbox and open it up and see that, you know, I got a little note from somebody. That's huge. So one of our last questions that we're going to ask before we turn it open to Q&A is, let's imagine that you guys have a time machine and you can go back to your internship. What would you do the same? And what would you do a little bit differently?
I'll take that one. So one thing we didn't talk about was dealing with managers. So I had a really bad manager one summer, and that was and it wasn't because it was because he was new to the job, and I had interned in the group the year before, and I knew more about it than he did, and it was kind of this weird. He wasn't there able to help me. I was helping him more than he was helping me. And what I wish I would have done during that summer was try to be more present with him, because I kind of just stopped meeting with him, and I didn't. I turned to other people, and that ended up hurting me in the end. And so I would say, if you have a bad manager dealing with somebody who's not really available, you can still meet with them and still try to make sure you're building that relationship with them, so that, because they're the ones who are going to do your performance review at the end of the summer. So I will say that.
That's true. It's important to know, you know, your supervisor is there to help and support you, and they can absolutely do that. Conversely, they can make sure that they don't help you also. Right.
And like I said, had I probably kept meeting with him and tried to build something and have that rapport, it would have had a different outcome. So
very good. So what would you do the same? What would you keep?
From that time?
Maybe it's another internship.
Okay, let's see. What would I keep? Can you circle back?
Yeah, of course, we'll come back to you.
So I think what I would change is I would probably be a little bit more forceful and upfront with my own ideas. I think we walk into new companies or new opportunities and we're kind of like, all right, I'm here, but I don't really know what to do. So I don't want to speak up as much. So I think I would speak up more in regard to the ideas that I have, again, because all these companies want innovative folks, and a new brain at the table is a good thing. What I would do the same is, you know, fortunately for most of my internships, I had really good bosses. So I was fortunate in that area. So I would just continue to deliver on the actual, you know, project. I feel like I've always performed well. So continue to perform well, but also be more forward and open to share your ideas.
Very good.
I would say if I could go back, I'd take all the knowledge I knew now about networking and apply that in my internship. By the time I got to my internships, I figured out what networking was, but I did not know the follow-up. So I really didn't take advantage of keeping in touch with people. I interned at 3 different companies or organizations when I was in undergrad, and those have been great connections to keep if I remembered how to follow up or if I knew how to follow up. So I definitely say I take that networking knowledge that I have now and put that into what I did when I was at my internship.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm having a balanced network. You know, as an intern, I know I can speak for myself. Kind of flock towards the other interns.
Right.
You know, we traveled in a pack. You know, we all together, we ate lunch together, we did everything together.
Here come the interns.
Yeah, exactly. I hear that a lot. You know, but you know, do that, but also make it put an effort to put in a lot of networking with higher level leadership as well. Even the entry level folks there as well. You know, it's a good idea to kind of make sure you don't be leaning too much to one network, or don't be afraid to branch out. You know, don't leave behind any relationships. Don't underestimate any other relationship, but don't never be afraid to branch out to try to meet other people as well, because at the end of the internship, you're going to wish you met as many people as you could. So never be afraid to branch out.
Very good. I'm going to add some stuff to that too, because I like to talk. So, I think if I could give myself one piece of advice in terms of what I would do differently, it would be kind of what you said, and it would be to network not just with the folks in my group, not just with my supervisor, but, think about a holistic view of who your network is. And maybe it's your supervisor, and you want to build that network. Or maybe it's somebody in a totally different business unit, because, we talk all the time about agility and moving into different business units. You never know where your career is or where the opportunities are going to be. Additionally, don't be afraid to use that elevator pitch that you talked about. We here in Dallas, we're at AT&T Global Headquarters here, and we have exposure to many of our senior leaders on a daily basis just by virtue of getting in the elevator with them or by running to them at line at Starbucks. And I can recall so many opportunities that I've had to practice my elevator speech or to make an introduction and make a lasting impression with some of our senior leaders, but I was too afraid because I was, I'm just an intern. Don't say anything stupid, Jonathan. So that's definitely a piece of advice I hope you all can take into your internships this upcoming summer. And I would say one thing that I like that I did is that feedback loop. I really did ask, and I still do ask consistently for feedback, because as you all know, okay is not okay, which happens to be our new marketing campaign. So take a look at the commercial. But definitely close that feedback loop and keep it going that way. So, any other points from you all before we move into our open Q&A with our participants on the interweb?
Don't get comfortable.
Don't get comfortable.
I think that just consistently remind yourself of that. Don't get comfortable in anything that you're doing. Since we are in the global headquarters, just thinking of that. We're here in the United States, and I know a lot of people who signed up for this are at institutions here, but you're competing in a global market. And I tell that whatever HBCU we stop at when we have our workshops and sessions, we make sure students know you're literally not competing with the 101 HBCUs or the 4,000 colleges and universities that are here in the United States, but you're competing in a global market, in a global economy. So you getting comfortable with someone waiting for your spot, So keep that in mind. Always hustle and do what you have to do. If you're in your field, if you're working in an internship where you see yourself at that company for a long time, do what you have to do during these few months so that you can set yourself up for the rest of your life. It makes a difference. So.
Very good. All right, so we have some questions from the web. We're going to answer them live here. So one question that we're getting is, how should an intern gain trust early with their coworkers?
I think a way to gain trust early is to, you may get assigned a little project, kind of make it your goal to do that as well and as fast as possible. If it may not be something that you can do fast, but, just being able to do something, to be able to show that, hey, I'm here to help, I'm committed to the team, and therefore, here, look, I did this, and your coworkers, all of those people will respect that, and they'll start to realize that you are dependable, and make sure you do whatever you say you're going to do. I think that's very important. Yeah.
Just to piggyback, I think that if you're willing to volunteer for opportunities, but say if you have a peer and you notice your peer just has a lot on their plate, as you see maybe your peer sends out a report every day at 9 a.m. and hey, raise my hand. That's a simple task you could do as you just start the company, and all you got to do is really get the report, hit send, but you're taking something off someone else's plate, right? Yeah. So find out if there's low-hanging fruit that potentially someone on your team might have, and that helps you build that relationship, but also shows that you can be trusted pretty quickly.
Yeah, I like that. Just to layer onto that, if you're taking on an additional assignment, do it just like you do your own work. I think sometimes people get into this funk where they're actually, I'll do it, but I'm not going to, do it the way I would do my own work. Right. Do it better probably than that person did. And we had some interns this summer who did phenomenal work with additional projects that they were given. they did, laughingly, they did a little bit better than the AT&T full-time employees.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing that leaves an impression also.
Agree.
Very good. All right, we've got some more questions coming in. So how would you recommend staying involved with the company when you go back to campus?
So I know a lot of companies actually do ambassador programs. So they'll send you back to spread the word to other students at your university about the internship, what you did, how you liked it, so that you kind of do a little of the recruiting legwork for them. So that's a great way to stay engaged with the recruiters and the company.
That's good.
And then also, if you can identify who your recruiter is, I'm sure you'll know who that is when you get your offer. When it's time for career fairs, following up with them like, hey, will you be, on campus for the career fair? I would love to come by and talk to you. I did that a couple of times and that worked to my advantage. If you go to any kind of conferences, same thing. Hey, will you be at this conference? I'll be there, and I would love to come chat and touch base with you. That's also a way you can kind of keep in touch with the company.
All right, very good. And so nobody's perfect, and oftentimes we make mistakes. So what advice would you give an intern that's made a mistake? How should they best recover?
I would say admit you made that mistake and
Sure.
apologize for it, and then do your best to kind of course correct and show that you're working to not make that same mistake again.
I'd add to that, do your best to understand what you could have done differently, and then ask for small opportunities to prove that you can do a good job and make some progress.
Yeah. In addition, it's kind of what you mentioned earlier, using someone else. If it's say you're creating something, a presentation or a report, using your peer, someone you trust, to run it by them first before you actually deliver it, to make sure that you've covered your bases on that.
Yeah, don't try to cover it up. That's a big mistake. Don't try to cover it up. Just be professional and just kind of like Felice said, admit it. And take the corrective actions to what you need to do to correct that mistake.
And I will say, at an internship, you're there to learn. So mistakes do happen. And I think it's the way you handle it that tells more about you than you actually making the mistake.
People definitely appreciate you owning the mistake.
Yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely. I was going to say, it's kind of like this notion of turning your L's into lessons, word to Chance the Rapper. But yeah, if you're able to own your L or your loss in a situation and you're able to learn from it and really show progression from whatever that L was, people can appreciate that. They can say, okay, well, this person is not only mature, but they're learning, they're growing, and they're evolving. And that's, to me, says more about who you are as a person, and really goes further. And I shared a mistake I made with you all earlier, and I'm not whoever asked the question, not perfect at all. I've made plenty of mistakes, but I've also gone back and gained that trust, from the people that I've worked with, because I was able to say I made this mistake, but I put in that 110, maybe 150% to make up for that, so that's where that comes in.
And I'd say learning how to fail the right way is really important, because as you grow in your career, we just talked about stretching yourself and not getting comfortable. Well, sometimes when you step out of your comfort zone, there may be a chance of failure. So it's just knowing how to manage that risk and knowing how to own it.
Yeah, kind of like you said, failing forward, right? Very good. So another question is, when did you apply for your internship, and when did you hear that you got hired? And how did you keep in touch with the company before you actually got started? So kind of internship application time frame, and it might be different from company to company. So I want to hear from all of you, because you all had really diverse internship experiences.
Yeah, I'd say mine really aligned with my campus career fair. So if you go to A&T, go to the career fair. It's a huge opportunity to get yourself in front of the recruiters, which helps you out a lot with the application process, because now they know who you are, they know your face. So when you apply, you're getting picked out immediately. I know they do on-campus interviews as well, so that speeds you up through the process. Also ask questions. So once you know you've gotten your offer letter, you can reach out, ask if there's anything you need to know, anything that you need to be prepared for on your start date. And I'd say time frame wise, for me, I've seen for the most part by March, most companies have decided who they want to go with for their summer internships. So know that you want to try to secure something before the March timeline.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think in the fall, you need to start figuring out what companies you want to target, visiting those sites, getting familiar with what their programs are. Most of them should have some timeline there in regard to when they start taking submissions. Submit early. Don't wait to the last minute to submit. The other thing I'll add on top of your campus career centers, there are organizations that have specific relationships with some of these companies like Inroads. So, if you're in an urban area that has an Inroads local chapter there, reach out to Inroads, let them know that you are a college student, you're interested in gaining a corporate internship, and if there's a possibility for you to be a part of that organization. Some of these groups like Inroads have direct relationships where they can leverage getting folks internships. So that's another avenue.
For me, all of mine were actually secured in the spring. One was through a connection that I had at my university, and I applied for a job. And then after I applied for that, I think after the interview, I heard back maybe a week or two on the decision. And then the other opportunity, when I got with Toyota, I did at the NSB conference, national conference. That's in spring. But like they said, traditionally, it's usually the fall when you kind of get those opportunities and interview for the jobs. As far as for my full-time, I interviewed for that in August and had that secured by November. And so that's the time frame for me.
Yeah, for me, all of my jobs, I applied for them in the fall, and I received like my offers maybe sometime in the spring around March and April. One thing I'll say about that, when you do apply for certain positions, mine came through my university, so let your university contact know that you did apply for something. They can kind of look out for you as well when they're talking to different recruiters and things like that. And also, especially if you're doing something through a university and you get an offer, then you may have someone from your university, or alumni working there as well. So there may be a person you can connect with to kind of get an idea of, they may know your supervisor or something like that. So utilize your resources and being able to let people know what you're doing and know your progress through the application process.
And what I will add is that, like we've said, that the fall is kind of the strong season for you to go and interview, but I secured mine in spring, and there's always opportunity because people will not take jobs. They'll have openings come up, and they'll still be looking for people to come. Those recs will be out there. So if you don't secure something in that fall season, don't think all hope is lost. You can definitely, I know my campus had a spring career fair as well that was usually in February. Granted, it was geared towards more of the full-time hires, but I will say there were opportunities for interns as well. So that's also something you can think about if your school has a spring career fair. And then be looking online and looking for jobs and seeing what's open, because you never know what might come open at the spur job of that.
I think even with HBCU 20x20, what we find when we partner with companies is, like you said, opportunities just may come up, so whether it's filling like full-time or entry-level roles or those internship roles, they're just like, kind of like antsy. Can you help us a little bit find some?
Yeah.
And, in addition to Inroads, the UNCF, Thurgood Marshall College Fund, there are plenty of opportunities available, but kind of think of it like the university cycle. Like, when you were applying to college, it's almost the same thing with interns, you still keep that in mind.
Good point. So a really poignant question that's coming from the internet is, what if you get into your internship and it's not what you were expecting and you find yourself unhappy? How should you proceed?
You got to ride it out.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is you still need to perform and do a great job. I mean, throughout your career trajectory, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. But what the hope is that people leave there and say, you did a great job regardless. Like, someone may put you in a situation purposely that they know you're uncomfortable with because they want to see how you will perform. So again, ride it out, do a great job, and just know next year apply for something different.
And I went through that in the summer when I had the bad manager. I was miserable. I was like, this is the absolute worst. But what I had to do was kind of find my why and think about what I could still learn and what I could still gain, even though I wasn't in the best environment or situation. And then also thinking about post-internship, how can I use or what can I do to kind of build something for me where this makes sense and then it actually is a benefit to me, even though I don't really like the space that I'm in. And then thinking about how I could use this for one, applying for jobs and knowing that I don't want this type of environment in the future. So, yeah.
I'd definitely say it depends on why you're unhappy. It may not be something that's a permanent thing, or it may be a misunderstanding. So if there's something that you'd like to see changed or an opportunity that you would like, you can always just talk to your supervisor about it and see if there's something that can change in your internship. But if not, definitely stick it out. You want to build those positive connections. You don't want any detractors. And like Celeste said, just learn from it what you can.
Yeah, throughout your career, it's going to be ups and downs. You're not going to have every perfect position. Sometimes you're going to do things that you might not necessarily want to do, but it's all about staying committed and also still performing to the level that you're capable of performing at, and realizing that, especially dealing with internships, that it's for you to get a great opportunity and a great experience, but you're not just representing for yourself, you're representing for your university as well. So you don't want to cross or burn any bridges during your internship. So I definitely say continue to stay professional. And when the time comes, look for a different opportunity, but continue to perform well and stay professional.
That's good. So as an intern, how can you let your supervisor know that you're feeling overwhelmed without making it seem like you're unable to handle the projects assigned to you?
I think you have to sit down with your supervisor and have a prioritization conversation, right? So actually list out all the things on your plate and just let them know, hey, I need your help prioritizing the things that I'm working on. I have 8 hours in a day or 10 hours in a day, et cetera. And how would you prioritize these elements? Most of them will help you through that, and they'll understand that as long as you're focusing on the top 5 or top 3, whatever you guys come to an agreement on, they're okay with that.
Really good.
I'll leave it at that. Yeah, that was really good.
Say no more.
Yeah.
All right. So our last question is, I've been searching actively for internships, but keep failing in interviews, 7 interviews to date, and I don't have an internship this summer. What do you suggest I do this summer to better increase my chances to get an opportunity next year?
I think you have really good advice, right? When you said you didn't have experience in the specific field, but you utilized your connections at the university, working with a professor to learn more about that field. So when you went back next time, you had some background in there. So if you find that one of the reasons you may not be getting the opportunity because you don't have experience, what are the other avenues where you can gain experience that isn't necessarily job related? Maybe research, but that's one way.
And then also preparing for your interview. So my freshman year, I had 3 interviews, stellar resume, and I just knew I was gonna get the job. But the feedback I got from one of the interviewers was that she has all this great stuff on her resume and all these things, but can't speak to what she's done. She doesn't, basically saying I didn't interview well. So what I had to start doing was I went online, found behavioral questions, and answering to the STAR method.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at all of my accomplishments and literally just type out responses and practice saying them. And the more I did that, I would be able to go into an interview and be able to communicate my impact, what I was able to do, and why they needed me for the job. And that changed the trajectory of my success in interviews, because preparation for those things, it's kind of hard to talk about yourself and what you've been able to do. And then even if you haven't done the most, or had internship experience, or had leadership experience, even being able to clearly articulate the research that you've done. Or even when I was at the career fair and I landed my Toyota job, I had no internship experience, but I talked about my classes and how that applied to what they were doing at Toyota. I said, in my quality class, I've done this, and this ties into just making it all make sense and relevant to what you're interviewing for and the position that you're interviewing for. But practicing that and writing it out and understanding, okay, how can I communicate this to where they know, oh wow, she can really come in here and deliver because she's done all of this stuff, and she can communicate that as well. So
I'd say three things. So make sure you ask for feedback. They may not get back to you, but they may get back to you, and that's very valuable. Two, utilize your career services department. A lot of them do mock interviews, so you want to make sure you take advantage of that. And three, look at what you're applying to. If you're applying to a lot of the same types of opportunities, or you're applying to Amazon and Google, or very high up companies in your industry, maybe go for a research internship at a university. Just diversify your applications. You just want to get the experience. You don't have to start off at the top company. So definitely diversify your applications.
And I'll say, just stay encouraged. Keep applying, keep seeking to improve, whether it's in your experience or in your practicing your interview. Just stay encouraged. I had a lot of interviews before I landed my first internship as well, and I thought they went well. They didn't get back to me for whatever reason, but as I continued to do interview after interview, I started to and get feedback from other people. I started to realize some things that I can do better. So it's all about just continuing and staying encouraged, and know one day that it's going to happen, and that right opportunity is going to open up for you.
Absolutely. And to whoever asked that question, feel free to reach out to us. HBCU 20x20 is really hands-on. I give my cell phone number away. It's 323-982-5915. Text me and we can do some mock interviews via FaceTime, Google Hangout, over the phone. Let's figure it out. That's what we're here for as well. So, and you all can also text HBCU to 33222 as well, just to get tapped in. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much to our panelists for participating. And thank you all for tuning in. We definitely appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon during a busy time of year right ahead of finals to join us. And definitely stay in touch with AT&T as well. You can find all of our internships and our full-time opportunities at att.jobs/college. And you can also find us through social media. And if you search the hashtag reveal what's possible, you'll find some great information as well. So thanks again for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Bye. Bye.